Hello, and welcome to the Flix Forum podcast, where each episode we check out a Netflix original film in the order of release. For this episode, we are up to Netflix 146th film. It's going back in time a little bit to 2017. It's a fantasy comedy drama, Unicorn Store. It's directed by Brie Larson, also stars her, as well as Samuel L. Jackson, Joan Cusack, Bradley Whitford, Karan Soni, Mamoudou Athie, and Mary Holland, as well as Hamish Linklater. I am Jesse, and I'm here with MJ. How are you?
I'm good, mate. I think you're fine. Is it Hamish Linklater?
Yeah, something like that.
I love how you chucked him in right at the end. Like, you could have just not said him.
I could have. Did I drop the R? I think I dropped the R. That's all good. I stumbled a bit. I was like, when it threw me off because I had Brie Larson written down as well as in it. I'm like, no, I don't need to say her name twice. And then I was like, off from there. So it's all
you
good.
Could have said it twice. Directed by Brie Larson and starring Brie Larson.
Could have. Oh well, we slipped. It's all good. How are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yes, it's good to, and I think I mentioned this last week. Brie Larson and Samuel L. Jackson back together again for another film, and yeah.
I'm trying to do the math though. Would they have done, because this obviously was probably filmed in 2016? Would they have done this before Captain Marvel?
Yes, I think so.
They would have. Yeah, they would have.
Yeah. And then this was obviously released just in time for when the Avengers films are coming out, I guess, as well. Jump on that bandwagon of Brie Larson.
Yeah, smart Netflix.
Yeah. All right, well, let's start with our Fast Flicks, where we do our quick little summary of what it's about. Start us off.
All right, Unicorn Store is about a woman trying to grow up and live her life the way she thinks society wants her to, but she's tempted back into the magic of childhood with the prospect of owning her own unicorn.
Yeah, that's nice. I really struggled with this one because I've literally got your first sentence. I'm like, this is a story about growing up. That was all. I was like, I can't think of anything else. So I struggled massively.
That's fine.
But obviously it does involve unicorns and unicorn stores and the monotonous life that we could have. But let's talk about how this one was put together and how we got it 2 years after it was actually released.
Yeah, that's it. And we've already spoken about it a little bit. In fact, I don't know what I'm going to say here, but I am just going to do the spoiler alert nice and early, just in case I do slip into something I shouldn't. So Good. We are going to spoil this film during the conversation that we have. So if you haven't seen Unicorn Store and you'd like to see Unicorn Store, I would recommend watching it prior to listening to us. But then come back and listen to us, because then you can enjoy it on another level. So
definitely come back.
Yeah, definitely come back. That'd be great. Sorry, I should have. Yeah, definitely come back. So Unicorn Store is an interesting story of how it came to be. It seems to me that the script and even the project itself have been kicking around for quite a while prior to it actually being made. And Brie Larson herself actually auditioned for the role of Kit back in 2012. And at that point, Miguel Arteta was attached to direct the project. She didn't get the role, obviously. And the project itself basically just fell apart. From what I can gather, Rebel Wilson was actually reportedly set to star in that. I can only assume that she was in the role of Kit, but nothing happened. Nothing happened with that project. So a couple of years later, Brie Larson gets a tap on the shoulder to see if she actually wants to direct it. She then went back with screenwriter Samantha McIntyre, worked on the script, sort of did a few rewrites, and that went on for about a year, and then off they went to the races. So the film got sold nice and quickly, and they were basically making it straight away. So Brie Larson personally felt this connection to the story, particularly around those moments of the magic of creativity and having a childlike voice, and it's okay to speak up with that childlike voice. So she was really keen to take on this being her directorial debut, and also decided to star in the film, which I think was more Samantha McIntyre's idea. The screenwriter thought that Brie Larson should do it. So principal photography began in November 2016 in LA, and it concluded on the 9th of December in 2016, so shot for a few weeks. And then it had its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival on the 11th of September 2017. And then a whole lot of nothing happened. So a lot of times when films do premiere at film festivals, they tend to wait and see if any distributor is going to pick them up. In this case, it took over a year for any distributor to come on board. And then it was announced on the 9th of Jan 2019 that Netflix had picked up the worldwide distribution rights, and then it was released on Netflix worldwide on the 5th of April 2019. So that's kind of why we're doing a 2017 film that was released in 2019, because it actually did premiere in 2017.
Very, very nicely put, as usual. You've covered off a lot of the stuff that I guess that we can talk about. I mean, the only other things that I could sort of add is, and we saw this a lot when Netflix was sort of starting off to build their catalog of films, that they'd often go to these film festivals or to pick up films, and obviously this one played and they didn't pick it up straight away, but at the end of the credits, this one was supported by that Sundance Film Institute that we saw quite early on, where that they fund and help put together a lot of films. So that was how they helped with this one being put together, I guess, a little bit. We did mention that, it played at TIFF in 2017, 2019 Netflix. It did play at the Edinburgh Film Festival in 2018 as well. So in the middle there in June, and just sort of had another screening at a film festival. And we go off from those film festivals. This is the only place that it's picked up any nominations for any awards. So it was nominated at both the festivals, at Edinburgh for an audience award for Brie Larson, and then at TIFF as well for the Best Canadian First Feature Film for Brie Larson as well. So two nominations for her. Didn't win either of them. But obviously, this was sort of, I guess, made as a little bit of an indie film to start off with, and possibly not necessarily going to hit, I don't know, it's got a big cast, but not necessarily going to hit that mainstream circuit. I did look it up. The title for this one, there's only one other good translation that I could find.
All right.
And this was in Hungarian. It was at Hungarian. It was called My Glittering Dream. And I like that title. I thought it was quite nice.
I'll allow that.
Because glitter does play a big part in this, and obviously dreaming does as well. So I actually like that title. I thought it was a good little take on it, because Unicorn's Tour it's a very out there sort of title, I guess, when you're thinking about it. But the context to the film, it does fit well. Only other thing I've got here too is that at the start, there's a lot of footage playing like these home recordings or home video VHS sort of stuff. And apparently this is actual footage from Brie Larson's family, sort of vault, I guess, of actual footage of her when she was a little kid. So nice little touch there that she was able to bring that in as well.
Yeah. Can I just say, one of the things that you and I would both look at when we are doing a little bit of research on the film after we watched it is obviously look at IMDb on the trivia section, and pretty often there's some good stuff there that you're like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know so and so, tried to get a role in this film. Or I didn't know this happened, that happened. I read one on here which was absolutely deplorable, and I just want to call it out.
I agree with you so much, because half the ones on there were written so poorly. It was like a 5-year-old had written them, like the grammatical errors, and it was just like, this is rubbish. Like this. Well,
the users can click on it and say whether they found it interesting or not. And most of the time you'll see like, 50 out of 55 people found this interesting. This one was 14 out of 76 found this interesting. And listen, in this film, Kit, in brackets, Brie Larson, builds a special shed stable in her backyard. In Room 2015, Brie Larson's character is held captive in a shed for 7 years. And how does that get published on IMDb? And then why do 14 people find that interesting? That is the loosest connection I've ever found between films. And it's just awful. But I had to bring it up.
Based on looking at a lot of the social medias and the internet for this, I think Brie Larson has this little fan base that are pretty active on the online communities. So I think that they try to draw a lot of strings wherever they are. Like on Letterboxd, I went through to check out a lot of the reviews, and some of the comments are literally just like, Brie Larson's the best, 5 stars. I love Brie Larson. She's amazing. 5 stars. Oh, director of the year. She's going to make more movies. Bang, bang, bang. I was like, wow. Right. I think that sometimes the picture of what's going on can be distorted a little bit when there are certain celebrities that have a huge fan base, I guess. And I guess that Netflix will appreciate that, because they're like, bang, we've got a marketable star that has a fan base. We're going to get eyes watching this.
The movie star factor is a very real thing.
Yes, it sure is. Well, let's talk about the consensus then. What did you find out?
Yeah, on IMDb, it's sitting at a 5.5 out of 10. That's from 18,000 ratings. So, it's not great. It's not a great score. On Letterboxd is actually a lot better. 3 out of 5 with nearly 37,500 ratings. So I don't know whether what you just said then about Brie Larson's online following is really heavy on Letterboxd, or this just appeals more to the Letterboxd fan, because we're talking more than double of the people have actually rated this on Letterboxd and on IMDb, which is backwards from what we normally see. And a 3 out of 5 is a pretty good score especially for someone in directorial debut. So it's kind of hard to put your finger on where this film sits, but hopefully you have some more data on this as well.
I do. Just leading onto Letterboxd, I sort of last night as I was looking into putting this together, and I sort of got stuck in this little tunnel or barrel of this like Brie Larson. So someone had decided to put on Letterboxd like her first short film that she made when she was maybe 8 or 9 years old. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll give it a quick watch. And it's literally, I think her dad's got a camcorder and she's obviously telling him what to do because she's got the directing credit for it. And it's a horror short film of her being chased by a can of Mountain Dew. And I was just like, how, like, but,
I'm intrigued.
It's got such a, everyone on Letterboxd is like, oh, such vision for such a young kid and all this sort of stuff. And it's like it's like a can of Mountain Dew on a park bench, and she starts running. She runs towards a fence, and then there's a can of Mountain Dew on the fence. I'm like, good on her for doing this at a young age. She obviously had a passion for it when she was young, but for people to be like, this is her first directing role. It's like a little film that you make as you're a kid, like, oh God. Anyway, back to the
I love the idea of that though. I love the idea of her. And she said that in her school holidays or whatever, she would just like make film productions with her cousins, and she'd like set up her basement with, however she wanted to set the film. So that's great. I love hearing about that kind of passion. And I want to check out this Mountain Dew, this movie now, this short film.
Yeah, give it a check out. I know you won't rate it on Letterboxd because it's a short film, but just give it a watch. The only other one, obviously, we've got to talk about Rotten Tomatoes because that's where 99% of the general public will check out a film to see whether it's worth watching. And it's got a 64% from the critics, and that's on 87 reviews. So it's fresh, not certified. The audience a lot lower, 42%, and that's on over 1,000 reviews. So obviously a little bit of a disparity between what the critics think and what the audience thinks on this one.
It's hard to figure out if people like it or not. I really can't put my finger on it from all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it's either like you really enjoy this and get into it, or you don't. I think it's like one of those films that is polarizing. But let's talk about our early thoughts. And what are your early thoughts for this one?
Yeah, I'm actually, I can't wait to hear what you thought about it. But for me, I've been really looking forward to watching this. I remember when it first came out, and I knew it seemed like it was right up my alley. I just had so much trouble getting into it, like so much trouble. I wasn't sure if it was just poorly put together or it was supposed to have this cartoonish feel to it. But either way, I really wasn't liking it. And it kind of got itself into a bit of a groove. And I did end up connecting with it a lot more. And I think I like what this movie was trying to do. I love the idea of following your heart, not losing the magic of your childhood. And there were times when that really shone through, but it was a really clunky journey trying to get there.
I am going to say exactly the same thing that you said, just in different words. I absolutely hated the first half of this. The first half of this film, it was awkward. I actually felt anxious because I like Brie Larson and I want to do well. And I just thought, how can you direct this and put yourself in this role when like it was just such an awkward mess? Because it, like you mentioned, it was like they were stuck between the situations of the make-believe world and the real world, and it just didn't quite fit. It was like you either need to commit to one the whole way through or don't just try and mix it up, and because it was confusing as an audience. You're sitting there going, hang on, am I supposed to be in on this world and believe it? And there's so many things throughout that sort of just continually change that up. And I think for this one, and like I mentioned before, with the disparity between the critics, I think you needed to be in this from the get-go if you're going to like it. And I wasn't, because I wasn't sure how serious I should have been taking it. And I don't want to sound too critical though, because the second half, it did get better. I just think that I just think that it could have been more of that same tone, either from the first half or the second half, and just stick that whole way through. That's where I'm at.
It's interesting. We feel the exact same way. I like what you said about feeling anxious. I think I probably did as well without even knowing it. I was just like, oh, this isn't working. Please make it work. Make it work. Make it work. And it just wasn't. Yeah, that's really, really good call.
Yeah, yeah. All right, let's talk about some characters. There's a whole range of people. I don't know how far we're going to go in this one, but start us off with where you want to go.
Yeah, so with Kit, played by Brie Larson, and probably one of the reasons I had trouble with this movie was because I had so much trouble with this character. I just wasn't sure if she was swept up in dreams and magic of her childhood, or she's someone who actually hasn't grown up. Like, she literally has the intellect of a child. And I was really unsure, and I still kind of am unsure what it was actually supposed to be, because she seems to switch between the two. And to be honest, the difference between those two make two very different movies. If you're talking about someone who is, smart enough and wise enough, but still reflective enough to understand that the magic of your childhood is important and great, and try and live in that way you can, that's one person. But sometimes she felt like someone who seriously was stuck as like an 11-year-old, and in all aspects of her life, she was an 11-year-old in a fully grown woman's body. So, and that sort of stuff was the stuff that really didn't work for me. But then she dips out of that every now and then. I'm like, who is this person? So I'm confused with her.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying 100%, because you've got that idea where, she loves the rainbows, the unicorns, the Care Bears and all that sort of stuff. And you don't know whether, like, you're trying to work out, is she struggling like with her mental capacity and things like that. But then you see her in the outside world, and it's like everything in the outside world stunted as well. So especially like the office place and things like that. So I didn't know whether to take it as that's just what the world's like, or that's what society's like, rather than her. And like you mentioned, it becomes confusing because you have this idea that she feels rejected. She feels rejected by her parents, all that sort of stuff. She's awkward in these social situations, doesn't have any friends. And she does have this, she identifies that she wants to grow up. And for me, the realization for her is like, well, if I do a 9-to-5 job, I'll please my parents. I'll do what society tells me I need to do. I can push for what I want. She pushes that I want to do this presentation. I want to get full-time work. And then, this whole unicorn store and the salesman dude sort of helps her realize maybe you don't necessarily need that. But then it's confusing for me too, because to be successful in life, you do have to have some sort of drive, but that wasn't resolved for us. Like, her work situation wasn't resolved. It was like, oh, I've left and that's it. I'm happy because I'm not going to work. So is she going to just feed off her parents for the rest of her life? But then you have this whole thing where she's got this angst against her parents that I felt was really unjustified, because they seemed really supportive, a little bit weird maybe, but just didn't sit right. That like the big thing for her was this trauma from her parents, who actually seemed like a little bit out there, but they weren't horrible to her. They didn't like beat her or anything like that. The whole character just didn't fit right.
It's confusing, isn't it?
Yeah. All right,
let's go to her parents now, because I think you segue really nicely there. So you got Gladys and Jean. I'm gonna bundle them together, because I think they did have some similar issues as kids in terms of whether they were a little bit delusional and cartoonish in their treatment of their daughter. Obviously, when that guy comes over for dinner, like, it was just, I felt like I was 7 years old watching a cartoon, being like, oh, look at this guy's this, you should do, like, it was just too much. But then they had these moments, as you said, of caring and really empowering parenthood. And again, it just confused me, because I'm like, okay, so these guys do have this capacity to be fully functioning, empowering parents, but then sometimes they're just like really kiddish and part of a cartoon that I feel like I'm watching a different show at times. So I had similar issues with them, because they again showed signs of normality, and then showed signs of okay, this is just a different world that exists, and I got to get myself into this world. And then I'm like, oh no, I don't have to get myself into this world, because I think it's actually the reality that I live in. But it confused me as well.
I'm the same. I bunched them together too. I was like, you can't talk about them separately, because they were that, super awkward too, just like kids. So it's like, okay, they're a part of the same family. But I think that the thing that confused me the most, like, they might have been a little bit overprotective, but they still wanted the best for her. I think that their issue, the main issue with them, was their profession. Like, they were almost like counselors for young people. So, they're good at their job, but they're not good with their daughter. But we haven't seen any evidence of them not actually being able to support their daughter. So I think that if they had have given them a different job or alec or a lesser role in the film, rather than having these campfire kumbaya sort of sessions that, you see them actually caring for other kids and doing a good job with them, and maybe it would have suited a little bit better. But the first 10 minutes, like you mentioned, with this dinner with this Kevin dude and all this sort of stuff, it really reminded me, there's this film from last year called Kajillionaire, and same sort of setup. You've got really awkward parents, awkward kids, just done so much better. So if you
Okay.
want to see a good film, check out Kajillionaire. But this film, the start, really reminded me of that. Maybe I was comparing it because I was like, this is so poorly done compared to what that was.
Yeah, right. Gotcha. Yeah. All right. We're on the same page again.
Yeah.
All right, I want to go to Virgil. Is it Virgil or Virgil? I think it's Virgil, and she keeps calling him Virgil.
Virgil. Yeah, I think so too.
Anyway, I didn't mind him because he's probably the only character who felt semi-relatable. Like, he handled these bizarre situations similar to how I would. And I appreciated that relatability in a film that I'm still not sure was grounded in reality or not. But I have to say, I didn't really love his acting. I thought he was wooden, and I thought he seemed like he was really trying hard to act natural and casual. I thought he was okay, but it just stood out for me a little bit, despite the fact that I did like this character. But the fact that he was based in reality confused me even more, as I didn't know what was real and what wasn't, because he seemed to be pretty real.
I really liked that you mentioned his acting as wooden, because it fits in well with his hardware store job. Because I never bought that he was interested in her one little bit. I thought he was like the stereotypical gay friend that you see in a lot of these films, and that, like, so the whole love connection and that towards the end really fell apart for me, because I was like, this guy is just meant to be he's over the top, and he fits in well with the film because he's this over the top sweetness, which this whole film is. But he was too kind. There was no.
He's good
in a film like this, you're used to seeing some downs and outs, and he never did anything negative or wrong. He was just, I'll support you. There's an answer for this. Well, let's get through this. And I wanted to see a little bit more shade in his character, I guess, rather than just this, I'm sweet, check me out. Yay.
That's fair. I like that.
Yeah. All right. Next.
I honestly don't have anyone else. I'm happy to bring up anyone that you want to talk about, but I didn't think anyone else was worth bringing up, even the salesman, but I'm sure you probably want to talk about him.
Yeah, I've got Gary in next, that creepy boss dude. I just put him in.
I didn't want to talk about him either.
Yeah, I didn't want to, but I didn't want to chuck this in the scenes but I thought it'd be better to talk about it as a character, because the over the top interest from him, he sort of, to start off, you meet him early on, and he fits in well with this weirdness that you're getting from every character that you met so far. But you see these little references throughout of other women in the office calling him out on his behavior. And then it's sort of just like laughed off by Kit. And this might be mentioned later on in the scenes, but it's just laughed off. Like, they're in this car ride, and, am I pretty enough to be sexually harassed? Like, what a woeful character for a character to actually ask this on screen about another character. It's like, of course that's wrong. Like, you don't need to ask that to the audience. The audience has already worked out that he's a creep. You don't need, it was just, I thought he was, I don't even know if he added anything to the story. It was just weird.
That's true. He added to the fact that I had no idea whether this was all real or happening in her head or what. Because at the start, I'm like, okay, so this isn't actually like a real workplace. This is like just something that she's created. I don't know, but I think it was.
I'll chuck the salesman in there just to finish off, because, this could be question time anyway, but I just wanted, I was so confused whether he was real or not. Was he just this magical dude? They needed to stick with it the whole way. If he's an imaginary dude, stick with it the whole way, because when Virgil at the end meets him, that just blurs the lines completely. So he's real because Virgil's met him. And then it questions the rest of the whole backstory of that film. So to me, as good as Samuel L. Jackson was in his limited time on the screen, I just needed a constant for that character.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And I can imagine that being a wider criticism for a lot of people. I actually didn't mind the fact that those lines were blurred, because I think the magic of childhood should blur some lines. And you walk away going, so is he real or is he not? Is a unicorn real or is it not? And that's a valid concern. I guess maybe because I wasn't as invested in this film by that point, I was just happy to be like, cool, let's just talk about the magic as the magic. And Virgil's response just being completely awestruck by it kind of worked for me, because it's like, yeah, that's fair. Like, let's not dig into it. We don't need to dig into it. Is it real?
Yep.
Nah, maybe not. Maybe it is.
Yeah, fair. All right. Brie Larson as a director, feature debut, a lot of shorts, obviously mainly known for acting, but I don't think there's much else to say.
No, exactly. Obviously, a very famous and well-accomplished Oscar-winning actress. Yeah, and this is her first directorial debut, apart from the Mountain Dew stuff and the other shorts that she's done.
All right, scenes. Give us some scenes you enjoyed.
Yeah, I've got this in there. I'll bring it up. I don't know why I enjoyed this. I laughed once in this film, and I shouldn't have even laughed because it wasn't funny. But when she's around the campfire and she's finally talking about it, and she goes, "Growing up, I never had a pet." And some guy just goes, "That's bullshit." I don't know why. It just caught me off guard. That was actually quite funny. And I guess that's where I was at that point of the film, where I hadn't really enjoyed anything up to that point. And I thought, oh, you know what, I got to call that out. So I did enjoy Virgil's reaction to hearing about the unicorn. I thought he unpacked it very well. Someone's scamming you. Let's do something about this. He wasn't, but he also wasn't pushy with her. He was like, okay, let's figure this out. I thought that was really well done. It wasn't like, quickly, let's go to the cops, or just like, you're an idiot, why are we doing this? I appreciated that side of it. Maybe again, it ties into the fact that he's just a really nice dude. And the only other scene that I liked was the final scene with the unicorn. It hit all the feels to me. I think for all the misfits growing up, and the idea of letting that magic exist in any way you want in order to follow your heart really worked. Her with the unicorn, talking to the unicorn, that was quite an emotional scene, and I thought it was done pretty well to let the magic flow. So that really helped sort of recover the film for me.
The film, good, yeah. I'm similar. I don't have an awful lot. I just want to mention that I think that visually every scene was done really well. Like, every scene was beautiful, from the stationery store to the office supply store, to each of the rooms of the salesman, to her bedroom. I think that the colors, they were just very vibrant, and it gave at least the look of the film stayed consistent throughout. So I thought, take my hat off to that.
Good shout.
I didn't necessarily like the campfire unicorn story, but the discussion afterwards with Kit and the dad, when her dad, the dad acknowledging that he knows that the kids around the campfire are lying in it, and it's covering up because sometimes it's easier than the truth, and that they all have this sad story. And, so what is it that they're covering up? And I just really liked his call out to her. Like, what are you covering up? Like, it was just a nice moment to see the dad actually call her out on her actions too. And the only other one I've got, again, it's the discussion with the mum. So she had this good discussion with the dad, and then with the mum, they're in the kitchen, and the mum's talking to her about what it means to be a grown up, and she tells this story about Kevin falling in the water, and she's like, I know you, I know that story will make you laugh. And then for her to walk out the room, or Kit to walk out the room, and see that some of her artwork's actually on the walls, and that her parents do appreciate the work that she does. I just really enjoyed that moment too. So yeah. All right. What are some things?
They're real people, real empathetic people that we just sometimes didn't see that side of it, which is fine, because I thought they were supposed to be cartoony, but they weren't. So that was the confusion. But they're good calls.
Yeah. All right. What didn't you like?
Look, I'm going to kind of lump this up into like 2 points. The whole opening, and I'm probably talking like 20, 30 minutes here. I've said it a lot of times. I thought it was too cartoonish, and it wasn't the movie that I was expecting to watch, and it also wasn't the movie that I did watch in the back half of the film. But also, like, really quickly, I just didn't think that I liked any of the characters, and for a lot of the film, that was probably the case. But it opened up with these pretty unlikable, even Kit, pretty unlikable characters in this bizarre scenario, and these weird scenes back to back that I just had no idea what was going on. So I'm going to lump the whole first 20, 30 minutes into a whole bit that I didn't like.
Yeah, good call.
And then the other thing that I'm going to lump into a bit that I didn't like is apart from those two scenes that you called out with her parents, which do work, I'm not sure whether there was ever really any chemistry between any of the characters. They all kind of seem to be existing on different platforms and kind of trying to work with each other, but butting heads without even they shouldn't have been butting heads, but they were. It felt like they're all operating on different wavelengths. And even you probably made the point about Virgil and Kit. Certainly didn't feel like a romantic relationship. And even the parents and Kevin and everyone, everyone was just not existing in the same wavelength, which I found really uncomfortable.
Yeah, another excellent call. Yeah, good. Is that it?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, that was. I think. Yeah. You. It's tough because, that's almost the whole film. It was.
I know. I'm summing up quite a lot of stuff there.
It was good though. I agree with everything. Like the start, I won't mention the specific things from the start, but I agree with you on that. Some specific things in the back end because the back end was better, but some things that really frustrated me was they're trying to set up this idea of Kit and Virgil sort of being together. And there's this scene where they're outside at night in that stable that they've made. And the mum's yelling at her to come in for dinner. And then, the mum calls her on the phone and she's pretending that she's got bad reception. I was like, come on. It was really bad. It was not funny. There's a scene where Kit and Virgil, they go and buy hay. And it was not needed at all. It didn't add anything to the story at all. And especially what do we need a whole road trip? And they sing this song, or she sings this song in the car. Just cut that out. Rubbish. Didn't add anything to the story at all. The presentation that she does at the end, where there's this sexist vacuum cleaner pitch with this sexy lady, and then her Kit's big glitter, over the top performance with dancing and all that sort of stuff. It was just fully awkward for me. And I cringed. I was sitting there cringing going, this is not going well. And just the commentary from the people around the boardroom table as well. It was just, what are we promoting in this film? It's
a really good point. I mean, we didn't need it to be oh yes, you're so right. You've got the job. Thanks for the way you think. Because I agree. It was still, I don't know how that's going to sell a vacuum cleaner, let's be perfectly honest. But the idea that everyone's just I think if we do this, will we still have the sexy housewife? And it's what? Is that how we're going to leave these people? It was.
Last thing was, this was where you mentioned it before, that you sort of liked the understanding that Virgil had about Kit telling him about the unicorn, but I just hated the way that she stormed off on him, because he was nothing but understanding and supportive. And it was not a reason to have this, we need to separate them so they can get back together again. You needed something more than that. It just didn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good. All right. Themes, ideas. I think that it's trying to say a lot. There's a lot in there. So what have you got?
That's it. The things that it's saying can relate really good to what we see on screen. It just didn't quite work. But the idea, don't lose sight of the magic that you felt as a child. And that should be applicable for everyone at every single age. And, don't fit into the boxes that society wants you to fit into. Be who you want to be, do what makes you happy. And there's people that are going to watch this film at a certain point of their life, even just a certain mindset that day when they watch it. This film is going to lock on for them. And no matter all the flaws that we think we've found, it's just that is going to resonate more than anything else. And that's pretty cool. And that's still something, because it does go down to the idea of self-discovery and figuring out what makes you tick, and, accepting others for who they are as opposed to just what you think they should be doing. But it's funny because as much as they're trying to tell this story, Kit more or less isn't accepted for who she is. And that boardroom scene's a great example of it. It's great that she expressed herself. It's great that she said, if you don't want me, then I'm out. That's all well and good. But there's still some question marks about how well they actually do this job.
Yeah, I'll probably just rehash what you've said just in different words, because that idea of that understanding your self-worth and your purpose and your place in the world, and there's a bit of this idea about love too. And she understands she doesn't need a unicorn to understand what love is, because she's met Virgil now, and that all ties in with that idea too of that creativity. And it pains me. I love creativity, I love the arts, but and it's good that they try to have this message of standing out, being yourself, doing what works for you. Living up to your dreams and doing something that is purposeful for you, but it just wasn't necessarily done in a way that was really inspirational to me, I guess. And the last thing too, like this, and the whole film is about growing up and turning your life around to head into adulthood, I guess. And I'm still not sure that I feel confident that she's ready, to be honest, because that idea of forgiving her parents still, that, yeah, I just, a lot of confusion at the end for me.
But she did say no to the unicorn. That was a big step.
True. That's very true. And she was very happy to tell the lady who had the card where to go. So it's a nice move from her.
Yeah. Although I did kind of wish she got the unicorn.
Yeah, I just hope her and Virgil don't break up, because who knows what's going to happen.
I hope for Virgil's sake they do. She's tough work.
He's an assistant manager now. That guy's going places.
Yeah. Maybe that's what the story's about.
What did you take away from this one?
I actually think I'd be curious to watch this again. I'm worried that I completely misread or misinterpreted the first half of the film, because the second half of it really agreed with me. So maybe I was just thrown off a bit, and a rewatch would help clear things up. And if not, then I'll walk away pretty disappointed in an idea that I think could have delivered so much more than it actually did. I just wonder whether I go in there knowing how that first half plays out, it doesn't feel as clunky and awkward, because I know that's what they're trying to do. Maybe it works. I don't know. I'm unsure, and I'm not in a hurry to watch it. But I just worry that I might have misinterpreted it in some way. Although talking to you makes me feel a little less.
As I was going to say, stop being so critical of yourself, because obviously I've taken the same thing out of it. So I don't know if you're completely off the ballpark. I think maybe you did interpret it the right way.
Maybe.
Yeah. For me, I get why this took 2 years to get a release. Like, this is a real hard sell. This is such a hard sell. It would not have done well with a theatrical release at all. And like you mentioned at the start, like, I remember when this came out and I was like, oh, cool, the trailer looks cool, this looks all right, I'll get into it. But I still don't know whether, if that had played at a cinema before another film, and I've been like, cool, I'll go say that. I would have been so disappointed if I sat in the cinema for an hour and a half watching this. So disappointed.
Really good point.
IMDb, did you jump on to check anyone out?
Yeah, I did. I jumped on twice. A couple of familiar faces in this one. First one was, that guy Brock, who was kind of like the delivery guy at the workplace, and then he just joined in the presentation.
The
dancing. He's in a bunch of TV stuff, but I recognize him from the movie Fantasy Island, which came out a couple of years ago with Michael Penner. He was really good in that, and he's a likable kind of guy. The other one I did IMDb, but I didn't know, was Sabrina, who was probably the other person that was in that presentation, who she worked with, was Martha McIsaac, who is Becca from Superbad. So the main,
cool.
One of the main girls that Evan that Evan likes in Superbad. That's a nice way to put it.
I didn't go on because I was just so confident that I had this one right. The dad was the dad from Get Out, yeah?
Yeah, Bradley Whitford.
Okay, good. Yeah, good. All right, done. I didn't need to jump on that. That was the only one I was like, I'm pretty sure that's him. Good. All right. Do you have any questions?
He's in lots of stuff.
He's in heaps. Any questions you want to ask?
Yeah. Do you think that this concept, or even more specifically, this particular story, would have worked better in more capable directorial hands?
Ooh. I don't want to be too critical of
a bit slanderish. I know. But I'm watching this film thinking this has been poorly put together. That's a lot of how I felt. As
you're saying that, in my mind's ticking, and I'm like, this maybe would have worked better as an animation. Possibly if you've got, we mentioned at the start, these characters almost seem cartoonish. So, and it was PG, so there's not much language, there's no real inappropriate references. Maybe this could work better if it was in a cartoon form, because then you'd actually see the characters more rather than change directors. I don't know. I don't want to be critical of Brie Larson. That's the only thing.
Look, my big thing is I don't like the cartoony side of things. I would rather them be more based in reality. And there's times where I'm like, is she meaning to be this cartoony, or is she just sort of getting it a little bit wrong? And I'm in no position to critique directorial work. There's just something that didn't feel right for me in what is a story or a concept or an idea that I think should have worked. And I wonder if that first half of the film felt like it was based more on reality. If Brie Larson didn't feel like an 11-year-old in a 20 plus, 25 plus woman's body, maybe there's much more resonance in that sort of film. So that's kind of how I feel with it.
Yeah, I reckon it goes back to what we were talking about before. They just needed to stick with that one idea the whole way through, rather than that switch up that we saw.
Yeah, but was it deliberate? That's my question, though. Do you think that was deliberate, or was it just
yeah? Like maybe it's more about the script. Maybe it's more about the screenplay rather than the directing.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, it is.
Anything else you want to ask?
Nah, that was all.
That was a ripper. I like that one. I've just taken a couple of ideas from the film and just try to bring up some discussion, maybe, because the mum makes this comment. She goes, the most grown-up thing that you can do is fail at the things you really care about. So have you failed at something that you really cared about and been really disappointed about it? So I know
look, firstly, it's an excellent piece of advice that's really difficult to do at the time. It's very difficult to be. It's very easy to be disappointed and try not to learn a lesson from your failures. Probably nothing huge, Jesse, for me. Probably more just sporting stuff that I've done.
Yeah.
And having the willpower to get back on the horse and get it done, because I think the best thing is every time you do fail, it's never the end of the world. And to keep that in mind that, all right, this didn't work this time. Maybe I'll try something else, or maybe I'll just try again, because it didn't work doesn't mean, something's wrong. So that's probably a bit for me.
Yeah, I was exactly the same. The first thing that came to my mind was a sporting story as well. Basketball, grand final, down by 2, fouled for 3 shots after the siren. For the chance to win the grand final, and I only hit one of the shots, so we lost. That really hurt.
Doesn't sound like you've moved on either.
Nah, when that's the first thing that comes to mind, it's like, oh, bloody hell. But I had a good game last night, so that's all good.
Yeah, but it's also not the end of the world.
Nah, exactly. All right, well, I think that's almost time to wrap it up and bring it all together. And we give a rating out of 5 and come together with a Flix Forum average. So finish us off.
Before I do, how nervous were you on the free throw line?
Massively. That walk back from the free throw line to the bench it's like a walk of shame. It was horrendous.
So which one did you hit?
The second.
Oh.
Yeah.
You must have been pumping.
Why are we still talking about this? Give us your rating for this film, please.
All right. So look, the ending did help. The concept helped. And I was on board with this movie eventually. I can't overlook the clunky confusion that I felt for such a large chunk of this film. The characters kind of made little sense, didn't really work together. The ideas where I wasn't sure if they were trying to be ironic or philosophical or just flat out literal. I mean, I still don't even know. It was just a bit all over the place for too long before it eventually did draw me in, and I did connect with it eventually. So I'm still going to give it 2.5 stars.
Nice. I think we've been on the same page most of this episode anyway. But yeah, the start lost me. I think sometimes you really want this obstacle somewhere in a film for it to overcome. And I think that they tried to chuck in a couple of little obstacles right at the end, and it happened sort of too late. And it did push through that nice message that was spoken about, even if it was too sugary sweet, too unrealistic, and too unreadable at times. I wouldn't be rushing out to see this one, but I'll still give it a 2 out of 5, which will give us a 2.25 average, which isn't too bad, I guess.
I think that's where it should sit, at 2.25.
Yep. I was very close to going 1.5, so very close. Well,
I was very close to doing it too as well.
Yeah, it's a tough one. We're on social media. We've got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we have Instagram. We pop posts up, follow us, give us a like if you can. Question I just want to put out there this week is, what does the unicorn actually represent? What does it, like a part of Kit's life, what does it actually represent?
I think it just represents the magic of childhood and the ability to still believe in that.
Yep. What about maybe her soul? Is that her soul? That's her. It's been so indented in her whole life. All she wanted as a kid was this unicorn from her parents. They didn't give it to her. This is that whole reason why she hates her parents, because they never got her a unicorn. This guy comes out of nowhere and he's like, I can get you a unicorn. He gets her a unicorn. And she realizes, look, I can get what I want. I'm happy to let this go now because I'm happy to take my soul myself and go with it. I don't know. Who knows?
I think that's a wonderful concept. Although I was worried for a second when you said, I think it's her soul. I'm like, but she didn't leave with it. So at least you know that she sort of found it. Yeah. Found her own sense of worth.
That could have been a woeful ending. Good. All right. Well, we're back again next week. We have another film, but this one's going back to 2019. We've got a teen rom-com, which is The Perfect Date. And this is directed by Chris Nelson, and it stars one of our favorite Netflix heartthrobs, Noah Centineo, as well as Laura Morano, Odysseus Georgiadis, Camila Mendes, and Matt Walsh. Whoa, so excited.
Welcome back, Noah.
I've seen this one.
Have you?
Yeah. My wife made me watch it when it came out. So I've got memories of this one, which I won't talk about too much.
Excellent. I'll be checking it out for the first time.
Good. Well, as usual, good chat. Can't believe we spoke this long about this film. It's almost as long as the movie.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Good work, mate. I'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye.